live from the Command Center. It is me, Joseph Henry, your host, the host of your new favorite podcast, The Command Center, starring Joseph Henry. That's me. Hope you were ready to go and everybody's had a good couple of weeks. I know it's been a little bit since the last episode debuted. I'm going to try to get on a steady release schedule soon, but right now, just working a lot, dealing with some other stuff this summer. Haven't been able to get that going, but, we're going to have a steady schedule soon. Hopefully, I'm thinking once every 2 weeks, maybe once every week. I'm going to see what I can figure out to try to put as much Commanders content out there as we're going to start picking up soon into training camp. Right now, it's a little bit of the dead area, but most certainly as football season picks up, this is going to be a once, maybe few times a week podcast that I'm going to be releasing. But hope everybody's good. Hope everybody enjoyed the first episode. I know I had a lot of fun making it. Shout out to my first subscriber, Emily Enriquez. Hopefully many more on the way. Happens to be my girlfriend. Probably completely unrelated. Just discovered the podcast because she loves the Commanders and we just had to see it. So shout out to my first subscriber. Any more subscribers that come, I'll be announcing them on the podcast. Just trying to say thank you because I really do appreciate that, and I hope that anybody who watches has enjoyed. But let's get right into it. Our first segment, that's going to be what we do every single week before football season starts, and then once football season starts, there'll probably be game recap, stuff like that. But Command the News. So what's the new Commanders news that's basically happened since our last episode? So since we're in the middle of that dead air right now with Commanders stuff, nothing much has really happened. Madden 24 has announced their ratings for the upcoming season, and a few Commander players have stood out to me. I'm a huge Madden player. Don't know if I'm going to be purchasing the next game because I think Madden's a little bit of a scam now, and I just don't want to spend my money on that much stuff for EA because they haven't really done that much to please the fans. Their games always break. Anyway, but Madden 24 ratings, this is always interesting. I know a lot of players care about this. Some standouts, Jonathan Allen at number 92 overall, Terry McLaurin at 92 overall. Two players very, very deserving of that. One major snub that I've seen, Daron Payne, an 83 overall. Daron Payne, who had one of the best defensive tackle seasons last season and was one of the top 3 defensive tackles in the league most likely. I mean, he was just all around fantastic. Got that huge payday monster extension with the Commanders, so feels like a bit of a snub there. He was an 83 last season. Another example of Madden not really knowing ball as well as they claim to. I think a lot of times with Madden, they the creators kind of just keep guys at certain levels. Like Aaron Donald was a 99 overall the past 7 seasons. He's still a 99 overall in the game. Not sure if he's deserving of that. Maybe a guy like Daron Payne would take a little bit of a jump up to the 80s per se. Quarterbacks get thrown around a lot. Madden's not the best with ratings, but it's always fun to look at the players and see what the general league consensus is. I want to talk about Derek Forrest, the safety breakout last season, who was in his second season, sophomore year, and kind of took the role from Bobby McCain mid-season after Cameron Curl got hurt. He's an 83 overall, so pretty big jump from a guy last year who did not even start the season, as I think he was a 72, 71, so big deal for him. And then also want to highlight Jahan Dotson, who's coming in at 77 overall. Feels like Jahan Dotson is due for a complete breakout season. He's a lot like Terry McLaurin in the way he plays and runs his routes, and I feel like we got a lot to expect from Jahan, and I'm really excited to see that rating jump up. And, it's going to be fun to monitor this. Chase Young, 85, Montez Sweat, 83. I know the players care a lot about this stuff, so always fun to discuss, but that's really one piece of news. The other main piece and the last piece of our segment, Command the News, is Commanders rookies are reporting this Thursday, July 21st, also when the new Barbie and Oppenheimer movie comes out. I'm going to be seeing Barbie first. Love Ryan Gosling. The rookies will be reporting. I'm recording this on the 18th. Hopefully it'll be up by the 19th. But big deal. Training camp coming underway. I'll actually be going to D.C. on the 29th to watch training camp unfold. And I'll be reporting from there and definitely having videos and footage for the next episode after that. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the team performs while I'm there. I'm going to D.C. with my dad, repping the T-Mac jersey right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to wear this there. I got a lot of good options. I got this. I got the Antonio Gibson. white jersey. I got the Jonathan Allen black jersey. I got my Sean Taylor. I got my Chase Young, Kirk Cousins, but I'm probably not going with the Kirk Cousins one. We'll see what ends up being my jersey choice. I'll be sure to let you guys know. But Commanders rookies are reporting this Thursday. The vets are reporting on the 25th. And then after that, it's just everything's underway. Going to be so much fun, so electric. Love football season. Always so entertaining and fun. Something fell. Don't know what it was. We'll keep the podcast going. Figure it out after, right? And then also, the whole Dan Snyder selling the team to the Josh Harris group has been a little bit of a weird situation where at first it was, is Dan Snyder going to sell? Is he going to sell? Is he going to sell? He sold! He sold! And then everybody's so happy. And then it was like, Dan Snyder has officially sold. It's like, wait, did he not sell a few weeks ago? I feel like Dan Snyder at this point has sold the team multiple times, and I've celebrated multiple times. And then it was like, Dan Snyder has officially agreed to terms to sell the team. And I was like, we're talking about 3-4 times now this has happened. And I was a little bit confused by it. And I've kind of come to the realization that until, like, it's really official, like, I see the new owner. Like, when football season comes around and Dan Snyder's not at games and it's the Josh Harris group, then I'll be like, okay, that's great. Like, a press conference, something like that. That's when I'll take it as official. Because also, there was worries this week that it wouldn't even officially go through because there was unresolved issues with Dan Snyder in the NFL. I don't like to get too into the Dan Snyder part of things. I do not think he's a great person. Hopefully he'll change his ways and become nicer and kinder and a better man. And, selling the team I think was the right choice because there's just been so much bad stuff while he's been here. But there were some unresolved issues, but apparently the league has resolved them. And the Josh Harris group is set to have the election this upcoming Thursday, the 21st. So when the rookies come in, could be Josh Harris being the new owner of the Washington Commanders, the Josh Harris group. I only say Josh Harris because I know he's leading the way. I think Magic Johnson's also in there. I'm sure there's a lot of other fantastic people. But the 21st, big day, rookies come team is having the league meeting to vote on if they're going to sell the team or not. And it looks like they're going to be selling the team. And the Josh Harris group is going to buy it. So that would be fantastic. That would be a huge deal and really a great way to kick off what is hopefully a great season for the Commanders and a step in the right direction for the future of the team. But that's all we have right now on Command, the news. So not a huge segment, but as the team progresses on in the season and we get injuries, roster cuts, Command the news is going to really grow. And maybe I'll have a little graphic up. Going to have to figure that out. I'm really just recording this on my computer and then I upload it onto YouTube. So it's kind of just being self-made as we go along. But everybody's along for the ride. Right now it's just my one subscriber, but hopefully that grows. But alrighty, so here we are in the second segment of the episode, which is going to be positional breakdown. So it's something we're going to do until week 1 of the season or preseason. We're going to try to get in as many of these as possible. So first position we're going to be breaking down is the most important for the Commanders this season and arguably any season, quarterback. And when you don't have a steady quarterback on the roster, that's something that's going to always be a talking point. So the Commanders have cycled through a lot of different quarterbacks through the past few years. I talked about that a lot in the last episode, but now we're just going to focus on the guys who are on the roster. You've lost Taylor Heineke, Carson Wentz, Ryan Fitzpatrick, all these guys that have played games for them the past few years. Alex Smith, Kyle Allen, Dwayne Haskins, may he rest in peace. All these guys, right? So now, looking at who's on the roster right now, and that starts with Sam Howell. And let's be a little bit honest, people. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge Sam Howell fan. And I'll tell you why right now. I remember Diami Brown was drafted in the 3rd round of the 2021 NFL Draft. Wide receiver for Washington, huge deep threat from UNC. So when he was drafted, I was watching footage, highlights, and I remember seeing Diami Brown, and I was like, who is this guy throwing Diami Brown these absolute deep bomb, beautiful passes? I was like, whoever this guy is one of the best quarterbacks I've seen play. And it's hard to tell with college quarterbacks because you can watch random teams cut up random teams and you're like, this guy's amazing. But when it's in the ACC or the Big Ten or the SEC, usually you pay more attention because it's more official, right? And I remember seeing this guy just absolutely slice up defenses and just make these crazy plays. and I discovered this quarterback's name was Sam Howell. And Sam Howell had played his first 2 years of college, and he would have gone to the NFL draft. He was so good, but he wasn't permitted to, because in college you have to play at least 3 years or be in the college system for 3 years. And Sam Howell started as a true freshman, so he hadn't done his 3 years of eligibility yet to qualify for the draft. So Sam Howell in college started as a true freshman and was amazing. Absolutely amazing. We'll take a look at the numbers right now, the numbers that helped win him ACC Rookie of the Year his true freshman year. So, in year one, Howell started 13 games. He completed 61.4% of his passes. He threw for 3,641 yards, 38 touchdowns to 7 interceptions as a true freshman in the ACC, a conference that has teams like Clemson, teams like NC State. I mean, that Clemson defense back at that time was deadly. He also ran for only 35 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground, but insane type performance for a true freshman, and led UNC to a ball game win. Came back for his sophomore season, started 12 games, 68.1% completion percentage, 3,586 yards, 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. A little bit of a step back in terms of the touchdowns and interceptions, but he did increase his percentage by almost 7%. And that's a huge deal. You're getting so close to that 70% of throwing. And he also rushed for 146 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. So very, very impressive stuff from Howell his second year. And one thing about Howell is his true arm talent is off the charts. I mean, this guy has got a massive arm. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's 6'1", 220. So he's a little bit of that short and stocky type build, but he can absolutely whip it downfield. And that's one thing that made him so attractive to scouts. So in that 2021 draft, everybody was saying Sam Howell is going to be one of the top quarterbacks picked next year. Now, one thing nobody talked about was the fact that De'Ami Brown, Michael Carter, and Javonte Williams, all 3 NFL players now, were the main offensive helpers for Howell. Howell would give them the ball and feed them, and they would help him out. And all 3 of them left for his junior season. So in his junior season, Howell took a little bit of a step back. He had 12 games started, 62.5% completion percentage, so down from year 2, but still up from year 1. Only 3,056 passing yards. He had 24 touchdowns to 9 picks, but he did rush for 828 yards. Before that, he rushed for 35 as a true freshman, and then 146 in his sophomore season, and then in his third year jumping to 828, and he also had 11 touchdowns on the ground. So a huge difference there when you look at numbers. Like, obviously year 1, the most dominating passer, but year 2, you look at decreasing in the passing, but still very good, and then year 3, messy with 2 extra interceptions and less throwing touchdowns, but also insane in terms of rushing and just being an offensive threat as a whole, losing Michael Carter and Javonte Williams, opening up that running game for Sam Howell. So then Sam Howell was projected to go on the top of the draft after his sophomore year. And in that year 3, other guys rose up and kind of took the place. I'm blanking right now on the quarterbacks that were... C.J. Stroud. Wait, no, that was this year. That was the year before. The year before was a weird quarterback class. Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral. I always thought Sam Howell would be the top pick from that bunch because I think that he is the most true talent as a passer and as a football player. But somehow he ended up slipping all the way to the 5th round pick, 144, which made no sense to me, which is where the Commanders selected him. And I'm not going to lie, I was completely overjoyed. Ever since I'd seen those videos of De'Ami Brown, I became a massive Sam Howell fan because, that was back when we had Ryan Fitzpatrick, Taylor Heineke. I was on the lookout for our next franchise quarterback, and I thought Howell was that guy. And I watched every North Carolina game, and I watched this guy play, and even though the numbers weren't exactly what you'd hope for, he's an offensive mastermind. Like, he can really just move things around so well. And that deep arm is something that you can't calibrate. It's just so powerful and electric, and it really is quite a difference maker for a team like the Commanders that has so many deep threats. So I was like, I want this guy on my team. So I wanted to draft Sam Howell round 1, and I know it sounds insane. especially after we traded for Carson Wentz. But I was like, this guy's so good, and I was like, no, we need something else besides. We need a wide receiver. We need a wide receiver. So we go on round 1 draft Jahan Dotson. And then I'm like, round 2, Howell's still on the board. I also liked Malik Willis a lot. I was like, give me one of those two. Washington picked a backup defensive tackle for Darian Mathis. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Round 3 comes. Who we drafted in round 3 that year? Was that St. Juice? Was that St. Juice? Who was the rookie last year? I can't remember off the top of my head. That's weird. Usually I'm really good with that stuff. 1 second. Alright, so in the 3rd round we picked Brian Robinson Jr. How could I forget B-Rob, the absolute tank legend, running back of the future. That was a huge, huge pick for us. And at this point I was furious because all the quarterbacks were starting to slowly go off the board. Guys like Malik Willis, guys like Matt Corral, and I wanted Howell bad. And I knew that we were going to lose him. So then round 4 comes, pick number 133, 111. And I thought, okay, it has to be Sam Howell. It's got to be Sam Howell. And then we ended up picking Percy Butler, safety out of Louisiana. At this point, I was furious because Sam Howell was still on the board. It was between him and Bailey Zappi. And I thought, we're going to lose out on another quarterback class because nobody wants to draft Sam Howell. And I was just so furious because I love Howell as a prospect. And for some reason, his numbers dropped off when his top 3 offensive contributors left. And it's like, people don't realize that, yeah, obviously your numbers are going to drop off. Like, that makes sense, but he found ways to still get the offense going. And it seems like everybody was just out on him as a prospect. It seems like they were just box score watching. But if you watch the games, Howell was still fantastic and worthy of a high pick. And I just didn't know why nobody wanted to have him on their team. And especially the Commanders, who desperately needed him. And then finally, round 5, we got our guy, Sam Howell. I'm a huge Sam Howell fan. I remember I was driving home. I had done something for charity because I had to for my high school. I shouldn't have told you I had to. I should have just said that I was doing it for charity because I love charity. I do like charity a lot. But I gave a guy money on the train today. So, not to say that I'm a great person, but other people have... Nah, that's awful. I shouldn't even joke about that. No, I did give money, but it wasn't... I'm saying I shouldn't joke about, like, saying I'm... Oh, my gosh. But we picked Sam Howell. It was a massive pick for us and something I felt very confident about. And for Ron Rivera, it seemed almost like he didn't really want the pick to happen, but they kind of had to because the value was there. But I don't know. It just felt like, having a young guy that you can kind of just stuff on the depth chart because we had traded for Carson Wentz and we had Taylor Heineke as in the backup spot, that he was just a draft and stash guy, and I was so happy with that. So then the season falls apart for Washington. And then in Week 18 versus the Cowboys, we had a meaningless game because we had lost to the Browns in Week 17 and there were no playoffs at stake. And Ron Rivera decided to start Taylor Heineke. And everybody was like, literally, what's happening, Ron? Why are you starting Taylor Heineke when he's not going to be on the team next year and this game doesn't matter? Let's just take a look at Sam. I was one of those guys, let me see Sam. Let me see Sam. And Ron wanted to start Taylor Heineke. But Taylor, being the amazing, amazing person he is, told Ron, listen, Sam's earned it, give him a shot. Apparently Sam Howell took a huge leap in the second half of the season last year in practice from the bye week on in terms of just preparing and his talent levels, and everybody wanted him to play. So I was ready. And on his, I hate the Cowboys. I really hate the Cowboys. My dad's a Cowboys fan, and we watched that game together, and the Cowboys had a chance to get the 1 seed if the Eagles lost and the Cowboys won. And on the first drive, the Cowboys gave it to Washington in minus territory, and then Washington on their Sam Howell's first career pass threw a touchdown to Terry McLaurin against the Dallas Cowboys, and it was so incredible. I mean, I absolutely lost my mind, and it was just awesome. Sam Howell played the whole game. Washington won. He went 11 for 19, 169 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The pick was really bad, but he had a lot of fantastic throws. He had one very, very deep shot to Terry McLaurin. That was something I'd never seen. One thing, as a fan, is when you have a player of Terry's caliber and you see guys miss him downfield, underthrow him, throw the ball in a weird direction so then Terry gets locked up and somebody picks it off. It just sucks to have such a talented guy and nobody be able to really utilize his true talent. But what I saw Sam Howell do in that Week 18 game was stretch the field, get Terry the ball with a huge deep throw, and it was just magical. He also rushed for 35 yards on 5 attempts and a touchdown. It was a huge game for Sam. He won the game, and it seemed like Ron was basically like, he's going to be the guy next year. You know, like, one thing that I want to talk about is Sam Howell has been given the quarterback one job, essentially, right? As long as he comes in and wins it and plays well. It's not really a competition between him and the backup who they signed, Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett's just the backup. But what this is, it's not, it feels weird, right? Because Sam Howell was such a weird part of this Washington culture. Like, they didn't draft him till the 5th round when it seems like they almost had to because the value was so good. They weren't going to start him Week 18 until Taylor Heineke and the players said, no, let's start him. And now he plays one good game and they want to give him the keys to the franchise. But what I see this is Washington is not good enough to give up more draft capital. They've given up draft capital for guys like Carson Wentz. They've signed quarterbacks. They've, made moves around, trades, stuff like that. And I don't think they wanted to do that this offseason. I don't think they wanted to go in for a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they wanted to give up assets because they're not good enough right now. I mean, they had to make a lot of moves this offseason. We signed a few offensive linemen, signed a linebacker. It was a pretty big deal to get these players in to help. And if you go out and get a big-time quarterback, you're not going to be able to do any of that. So what having Sam Howell on the roster and trusting him does is, and I think I talked about this a little bit in my last episode, is you give him the keys with this Eric Bieniemy offense. So it's either like you either are successful or we still have all of our draft picks and all of our money, you're bad, and then we have a good draft pick next year where we can either go get one of the top quarterbacks in the draft or trade for one of these guys because every year now you're having a franchise star level quarterback become available. Washington struck out on Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson. I just don't think they want to do that again this offseason. Yes, Derek Carr was available, but does Washington really think they're in the position right now to pay Derek Carr $35 to $40 million a year when they sign 2 starting offensive linemen? I don't think so. So that's what having Sam Howell on this team does. I am a Sam Howell believer. I'm a Sam Howell believer, but I worry, is this coaching staff a Sam Howell believer? Or is this just the way the circumstances are falling and they're trying to convince themselves? Because in the past, it didn't seem like they were a believer. But from what it seems like to me, Sam Howell's got a lot of talent. And Ron Rivera was just worried about throwing him into the fire because the Cowboys smoke us all the time with Dak Prescott. And then somehow the defense and Sam turned it on in that Week 18 game and got the win. And I think that showed Ron that Sam can be a starter in this league, especially for this Commanders team. So hopefully, man, he can be great for us. I'm really excited to see what he can do in this offense. Sam Howell is going to be the quarterback one most likely as long as Jacoby Brissett doesn't outplay him in practice. I love Sam. I'm really excited to see what he can bring to the table, and I'm wishing him all the best luck in this season. But really excited to see. I think if I had to give a realistic prediction of his stats, I haven't prepared anything for this. I'm just going to try to think about it now. I'd probably say probably low 60s completion percentage, 3,500 passing yards. I think he's going to have somewhere between 27 passing touchdowns and 13 to 14 picks. And probably 300 to 400 yards rushing, 7 or 8 touchdowns on the ground, which would be a fantastic season for a quarterback. I mean, Sam Howell is, I think, a fantastic player and a potential franchise quarterback for Washington. And I think in this offense with Eric Bieniemy, if everything clicks, he can definitely do that, potentially more. But it's also realistic that he might not be able to do that. So we're just going to have to wait and see, but that's the beauty of the sport. They have to play the game. So Sam Howell, that's the position breakdown on Sam Howell. And now let's dive into one for Jacoby Brissett, the backup quarterback. So Jacoby Brissett is the set number 2 quarterback for Washington and the backup to Sam Howell. If things go his way in training camp, Ron never likes to set one guy as definite starter, but it seems like that's kind of what Howell is. And if Jacoby is a fantastic player, he would take that starting role. But it looks like it's going to be Sam Howell through. So Jacoby Brissett's going to be the backup quarterback. Feels like he's most likely going to get some action because the amount of quarterback changes and injury that Washington has every given season. But Jacoby Brissett, the 30-year-old, he's a very much so a veteran. We'll get into that soon. 6'4", 235. He signs a 1-year, $10 million deal with Washington to be their backup quarterback and come in relief, anything like that. And, Jacoby feels like a great guy to have. He's done a lot of charity work, a lot of things like that. He's also a locker room leader, and he's had a very long, interesting NFL career, which we'll dive into right now. So, and started off in college in Florida for 2 years, but he didn't get a lot of playing time. So then in that third year, he transferred to NC State, but he didn't play due to college eligibility rules. And then his last 2 years in college, he played, and he did enough to get himself into the NFL draft mix. He was drafted in the third round, pick number 91 overall in the 2016 NFL Draft. He was selected by the New England Patriots, which was an interesting selection as they had Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo under contract at that time. But they did win the Super Bowl that year when they beat the Atlanta Falcons. That season, he played in 3 games for the Patriots. He started 2 of them. He went 1-1, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but he did throw for 400 yards. So, interesting season there. And then he was traded to the Colts the next year for wide receiver Philip Dorsett. And this is when his career started to get interesting because it seems like Jacoby Brissett is constantly in situations where he's not really given the keys to a franchise, but he's expected to start games and be a good starter for his team. So in 2017, he was traded to the Colts to be kind of a backup quarterback, and Andrew Luck gets hurt. So then he starts all games for the Colts that season. He goes 4-11 as a starter, throws for 398 yards, only completes 58.8% of his passes, but does throw for 13 touchdowns and also 7 interceptions. He was sacked a whopping 52 times that season, so a rough year. And then this was in 2017 and 2018. Luck comes back, he barely plays, and then 2019, arguably his best season and most interesting season. Luck is set to be the starter about 2 weeks before the season begins and then abruptly decides to retire. This throws Jacoby Brissett into the starting role, and in 2019 he started 15 games for the Colts. He went 7-8, threw 18 touchdowns, 6 picks, completed 60.9% of his passes, and threw for 2,942 yards. So very, very interesting. He also rushed for 4 touchdowns and 228 yards on the ground. And then the next year, Phillip Rivers was signed, so he barely played. And then 2021, he was signed by the Miami Dolphins. He went 2-3 as a starter in relief for Tua Tagovailoa, who was injured. He threw 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, completed 62.7% of his passes. And then his best statistical season in terms of percentage completions was his most recent year with the Cleveland Browns. He was signed by the Cleveland Browns because of situations with Deshaun Watson, where Deshaun Watson did not play the first 11 games of the season. I have thoughts on the Deshaun Watson situation. Anybody who knows me knows how I feel about that. I think Deshaun should probably never play in the NFL again, but this is about the Commanders, and I'm not going to get into all that because I get pretty intense about that. But anyway, Jacoby Brissett started 11 games for the Browns before Deshaun came back. He went 4-7 as a starter, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and yeah, he's just been a very consistent, very reliable backup quarterback, and now that's what he's being looked upon to do with Washington. Feels like he's going to play games for us at some point. I think Jacoby Brissett is a perfect backup quarterback to have. Coming into the offseason, he was my ideal, hopeful candidate for a backup quarterback. He's got an amazing deep ball, which he can help Sam Howell tool and learn. And if anything happens, he's very reliable. He's great on quarterback sneaks. I feel like he's got a very high ceiling as a backup quarterback, and if he was thrusted into the role, he could definitely win some games for us in a Taylor Heineke sense, but more consistent and less mistake prone. But Brissett's a really interesting player. He's got a lot of touchdowns to interceptions. When you look at it, he's thrown 48 touchdowns and 23 picks in his NFL career. But as a starter here, he's also gone 18-30 with 18 wins and 30 losses. So not the best when you're looking at it stats-wise, but he should be a great backup for us. And, Jacoby's always been known around the league as a great guy. So I'm really interested to see what he could do. So on to the next one. So, Jake Fromm is the third quarterback on the Commanders depth chart. I changed up the lighting situation here just a little bit, trying to see what works best for the podcast. So that's going to be an ongoing thing we work through. But Jake Fromm is the third quarterback on the Commanders depth chart. 24 years of age. He's 6'2", 215. Jake Fromm, the Georgia standout. He played 3 years at Georgia, known for losing in the NCAA championship game to Tua Tagovailoa in Alabama in that crazy comeback game when Georgia fell 23-26 after having a pretty big lead. He was the quarterback at Georgia for 3 years. He had 78 touchdowns to 18 picks in those 3 years and was a very, very good quarterback for them. He's a similar Georgia quarterback that we've seen over the years. Extremely, extremely productive and wins a lot of games, but at the same way that guys like Stetson Bennett are now in the NFL, not sure how they're going to transition. Jake Fromm didn't exactly transition into a star role. He was drafted in the 2020 NFL Draft, round 5, pick 167. He was drafted by the Buffalo Bills, was with them for a year as a backup quarterback to Josh Allen, but did not end up playing at all, and then was waived after a year. The Giants signed him in his second year, and then in that year he just looking at the stats here. In that year, he ended up starting a game for them and playing in 2 or 3. He had 27 completions for 210 yards, one touchdown, and 3 picks in that year. He was pretty awful. I mean, the Giants were really, really bad that season. That's when they had Fromm do the quarterback sneak on 3rd and 8 down in their own end zone against Washington. I remember watching that. Didn't exactly think Jake Fromm, that's a guy I want on my team. Fromm's a fine player. He's a good 3rd string, 4th string quarterback. Not sure I'd trust him in a backup situation. Still pretty young. Maybe he can get things going and turn into a true journeyman like Jacoby Brissett, or maybe go to starter role. But it feels like his time with that is maybe done. But I'm happy to have him on the team as a 3rd stringer. But not much to say about Jake Fromm. Funny last name, Jake from State Farm. I like that joke a lot. Maybe do some commercials with that. We'll see. But I think Jake Fromm's just a guy that good to have on the Commanders. They signed him to their practice squad, things like that, and it looks like he's going to be the 3rd guy. But I am very, very interested to talk about the 4th string quarterback for the Commanders, who not many have known about. And we're going to get into that right now. And let's talk a little bit about the myth, the legend, Tim Demerat. So, Tim Demerat. What's so interesting about him, and why is he potentially one of your most anticipated players to watch in all of the preseason? So, I live in New Jersey, and I go to Rutgers in New Brunswick. But I live in an area of New Jersey that is very, very close to New York. So my brother actually goes to Fordham University in New York, right? My older brother. And my brother loves sports, and, the Fordham football team is D1, but it's low-end D1. It's in the Patriot League, and there's not a lot of players that really go on to go to the NFL. I think Chase Edmonds of the NFL was their main guy, but besides that, not really anybody, right? So, we'd pay attention to the football team, but didn't really care that much. But my brother and I would always joke around about this one player on Fordham, the quarterback, Tim Demerat, and say that, oh, he's going to go to the league, he's going to go to the NFL, right? And we always thought it would be the funniest thing to say that stuff because, Patriot League, you're not really not really a big deal. And, not making fun of this guy, but just fun to joke about and say, this guy's going to the league, when we're talking about Fordham School. He's a good player, but a good D1 Fordham player, right? So he played 5 years of college football. In 2021, he had 31 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 3,214 yards in 11 games, and we thought, all right, maybe this guy is going to hang it up now, because a lot of times with college athletes, you see these players who come in and they love playing the game, but it's kind of obvious that they don't have a career in that game, and but they stay at it. They keep going. So Tim Demerat was one of those guys who decided, I'm coming back for my 5th year. And in 12 games, Tim Demerat put up some of the most insane numbers I've seen. 4,891 yards, 56 touchdowns to 10 interceptions in 12 games. Every single game that Fordham played was an absolute shootout, blowout, insane offensive explosion. And I was talking about, I'm on the Rutgers radio station. I'm part of a weekly talk show called The Crew on 88.7 FM or online at WRSU.org. Quick plug there. We talked about this Fordham team and potentially trying to get the Fordham head coach to come be the offensive coordinator for Rutgers football when there was an opening, but it ended up being somebody else that channel hired. I don't know. But Demerat is a 23-year-old. He's 6'4" and 220, part of the Patriot League, and now he was signed with the Washington Commanders as an undrafted free agent. So when I heard this news, I couldn't believe it. And I called my brother, and we thought it was the most insane thing. But when you look at the numbers, it makes sense, right? This guy is 6'4", so he's big, and he had 56 touchdowns, almost 90 touchdowns in the past 2 years, which is just unheard of from somebody so local to us. Like, we see this in other schools, but like, I go to Rutgers, he goes to Fordham. None of the schools in the area have players put up numbers like this, and we just thought it was so crazy because we would joke about him, and then he had this breakout season, and now he's on the Washington Commanders, my favorite team. So I'm very excited to see what Tim Demerat can do, and I'm hoping that he'll beat out Jake Fromm for that quarterback 3 job because, I mean, he reminds me a lot of Bailey Zappi, right? Bailey Zappi was a pick last year by the New England Patriots. Actually, before Sam Howell was drafted, it was Bailey Zappi. And I was happy the Patriots passed on Howell. Zappi was drafted, and he went to an FBS school that was not any like of the main leagues. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but Zappi put up the most touchdowns in a single season. He was drafted by the Patriots, and he started a few games, and he's a good NFL backup. I mean, he's a good NFL backup, and to have that from a guy who's not even in one of the main college leagues is fascinating. And when you look at a guy like Tim Demerat and his numbers, you wonder, could it be the same thing? I mean, maybe he just was a late bloomer. Maybe because if this was any season before his 5th year when his eligibility ran out, he would easily transfer to a D1 school. I mean, a low-end D1 school like Nebraska would easily maybe let him be their starter. I mean, these numbers are so insane. 4,891 yards, 56 touchdowns. I mean, these are Heisman numbers. And obviously, he's not playing Heisman-level competition. If he was playing Heisman-level competition, he'd probably get smoked. But the point is, there's a lot to wonder with this guy. And I feel like having him be the 4th quarterback in training camp is going to be a lot of fun to watch for us as fans, but also for the coaching staff because he could potentially be that quarterback 3 you're looking for. And maybe if let's say Howell proves he's the starter and this coaching staff stays, and then Brissett leaves, and then Tim Demerat could be your franchise backup. And then he could spot you a few games once in a while, be like a new age Taylor Heineke. I know I'm saying a lot, but I mean, he's a fascinating quarterback. If you watch his highlights, he's very electric. So it's a lot of fun for me personally, my personal connection with him, but also purely from an unbiased point of view, if you're looking at him as a player, I feel like there's a lot of promise with him. So those are all 4 quarterbacks currently on the Washington roster. I know that we spent a lot of time talking about quarterbacks, but it is one of the most interesting positions in all of sports and the most important position in football without debate. It's very interesting to look at these guys and see how the season's going to play out. I mean, it looks like this order 1, 2, 3, 4 is probably going to stick. If I had to guess that a change was going to be made, I'd guess that Demerat gets slid up to the 3 spot and Fromm is the practice squad guy, but that's still an unknown. But it seems like Howell's definitely going to be the starter and Brissett will be the backup, and that's really all that matters. But hope you enjoyed this episode of the Command Center. I know I had a lot of fun making it. It's taken me like a few hours to create because I had so much stuff to write down, but I'm really happy with it. Hopefully it'll be up. I'm recording this on the 18th, hopefully on the 19th, maybe a little bit later. I might get sick or something. Hopefully not. But we'll see what happens. Hope you enjoyed. Hope that hope that maybe some people want to leave some comments, drop a few likes, subscribe. That would be awesome. Just really happy to be doing this. Because I love talking about sports, I love talking about the Commanders, and I love sharing my love of these things with people. So really hope anybody watching enjoyed, and I'll see you next time, live from the Command Center. It's Joseph Henry. Have a good night.